what I was saying is that when you have y equals mx plus b, one of the reasons why it was important for us to be able to solve equations is because we've been solving to get a number or to get an inequality. We're going to be doing the same type solving, but we're going to get y on one side by itself, and you're going to have x on the other side, because we're going to start graphing, and not just graphing on inequality line. Another word we need to know, right here, coefficient. The coefficient of x represents the slope. Coefficient means number in front. Just like I've got M labeled right there. The number in front of x is a slope, or steepness. Okay, it's also defined as the ratio of rise over run. Rise is y, run is x, so we always want the change in y over the change in x. And that's what this little symbol here means. I probably won't use it that much, but when you get into Algebra 2 or if you get to pre-cal as a senior, then they may use that as a delta. That little triangle means delta. So we want change in y over change in x. We talked about last week our parent function. Over here on the edge, I just want you to sketch, nothing perfect, but let's sketch a graph here of our parent function. We got 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. I'm going down this way also. Like this. And I said that we could count this like a stair step, up 1 over 1. That up 1 over 1 is our slope. Okay, 1 over 1 or 1. So we've already talked about a little bit. It's positive slope. We go up 1x and over to the right for each up y over 1 for x. And so we get this stair step. The coefficient part of x is understood 1. So if there's not something there, then we want to put it as 1. That's why we want these to be in fractions or in whole numbers. Because it's going to be really hard to count if it's a like a decimal, okay? So we want it in these. So, let's look at this. If we're going to use 2 points here, let's just take our parent function. We already know the slope is 1. So let's look at how they got this on the equation. Underneath this point, I want you to label x1, y1, x2, y2. Over here, and we get 1 over 1, and we want to reduce our fraction to squared plus. We can use any 2 points on this line, because this line continues going. It's not just right there. So say we have these, 3, 3, and 7, 7. Little subscripts down there simply means your first point, your second point. That's you right. So we have x1, y1, x2, y2. So when I put in my formula right here, y always goes on top. So 7 minus 3 on top, 7 minus 3 on bottom, reduce it as much as possible, and we get back that slope of 1. Okay? So slope needs to be in the most reduced form. So what I mean by that is, don't leave something 4 over 8, reduce it to 1/2. But if you end up with something that doesn't reduce into a whole number, like 1/2, let's leave it in fraction form. Because we want to be able to count our slope. So this tells us that since slope is defined as a ratio, then that's our representation of it. As the x value increases, the y value increases. If it's a whole number, we just want to write it over 1. Okay? So, let's practice a couple of these. First thing I want you to do is to label. x1, y1. x2, y2. And we're going to put it into our formula. Y has to go on top. 7 minus 3 over 8 minus 5 gives you 4/3. Let's put one right below that, because we want to deal with one that has a negative. It goes into your formula. What we need to be careful about here is that when you have that formula, that subtraction sign that's in the middle, you're subtracting those two numbers. So just like we have issues with your negative signs on a regular basis, we want change in y over change in x. So when I fill these numbers in, I have negative 1 minus 7, and on the bottom we have 2 minus negative 2. I know that I've said many times, don't put a minus and a negative in the calculator. This is where you can, because it is there. This is 2 minus negative 2, because there's two signs. But up here, you want to put negative 1 minus 7. So this is separate from what your numbers are. It's always going to be there to start out. Now, what we should recognize, though, is that two negatives do make a positive. So whether you change it and put it in your calculator or you put it in the first, we're going to end up with negative 8 over 4, which is going to reduce to negative 2 over 1 or negative 2. The reason I probably would want to leave it as negative 2 over 1 is because if I go to graph this and I have some point on my graph and I need to count that slope, this is going to mean down and this is to the right. So I'm going to go down 2 to the right 1, and then I can draw a line. So that's why we want it in a fraction form, so it makes it easier for us to find it. So when we have these slopes, a positive number is going up going over, whatever it is. Negative is going down. This way, think about what slope means. Rise over run. Is this rising up or down? No. However, if I pick a point here and pick a point here, I can count between those. And so maybe it's changing over this way. What do you get your calculator? Put 0 divided by 5. You're going to get 0. So a horizontal line, think about looking at the horizon, like from a boat or something, look at the shoreline. That's going to be a horizontal line. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. It's just 0, it's a flat line. Okay, think about this one. If we have rise over run, well, if I start here and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I went up 4. Did I go right or left? What are you going to get? Put that in the calculator. Put it in there. Take the same thing. One's got 0 on top, one's got 0 on bottom. What'd you get? It says error message. This, you can't divide by 0. This is the problem. So when we have this one, we're going to say that there is no slope. We can say it's undefined. Sometimes you have this little line with a line through it. It's not a 0. It means no answer. Those are our 4 choices. Positive, negative, 0, or no slope. These two we cannot confuse. This is one of the most important things that we're going to do. This is why we spent so much time on solving equations. We're going to do the same steps that we have done for the last several weeks. But I'm not going to get a number answer. Okay? We want to get an equation that's going to be in this form, where this is a number and this is a number. So that's what I'm trying to get. Think about our same steps. If I want to get y by itself on the left side, what needs to move?
The x.
The x. If this needs to move over here, am I going to add it or subtract it?
Subtract it.
Can we say 4 minus x? No. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to rewrite negative x plus 4. I'm going to write the x term first. Think about it like rearranging furniture. Okay, if you take a chair and you go to the other side of the room and you turn around this way, it's still there, it just looks different. That x is still there, it just looks different. And so we need to make sure that when we rearrange things, that when it goes across the equal sign, it's still going to be the opposite sign. Okay, look at the one right here below it. You want y down here. You want y. Over there on that side. What needs to move? Okay, we're going to add it or subtract it. Okay, it's positive. If it were negative, I would add it. I'm going to subtract it. This is a negative 2y, just like we've done before. We can't lose the negative. But I can't combine 4x and 5, so I'm just going to rewrite it. And I want the x term first. Well, if I want just y, how do you get rid of negative 2? Divide it. Same step. Oh, that's gone. What's negative 4 divided by negative 2? 2. And this, I can leave it as 5 over 2, or I could write negative 2.5. The last number doesn't matter if it's a decimal because that's where you start on the y-axis. And so we'll see that those are okay. This one either needs to be a whole number or we can put it over 1 as a fraction. These are the same step every single time. What do we do first here? Okay, we move x and change the sign. What do we do first here? Move x and change the sign. What's the second thing we did? Divide by the number with y. So over here on the side, I want you to write number 1. Move x and change sign. Number 2, divide the number in front of y. Then, when we have it in y equals form, we can say this is our y-intercept, this is our slope. And those are what we need to make sure we have so that we can complete our graph.